Today, I'll be answering the age-old question, does it make sense to put my cents toward housing expense? Let's talk about that. All right, here we go. Ladies and jellies, it's so good to see you. Welcome back to the channel. In light of full transparency, my wife and I paid our home off early. And had we took the money that we put under our home and instead had put it into the S&P 500, would we be better off financially today than had we invested it on our home? Well, our net worth would have been higher had we put money into the stock market. But do I regret it? Not one bit. And so today, I'm going to share with you 8 benefits that I have found from making extra payments. And hopefully you will be able to see the benefit of making extra payments onto your home as well and be encouraged to do so if you're not already. Let's get right into it. Benefit number 1, making extra payments onto your home can be an emergency fund of sorts. Most banks will only allow you to push your due date ahead so far. If you put a year's worth of mortgage payments onto your home at one time, the due date is probably only going to push ahead 2 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months, but they're not going to push that due date ahead for a full year. Now, of course, all of those extra payments will go toward the principal of the home, but your due date will only be pushed ahead so far. So I encourage you to talk to your bank or your credit union, figure out what that number is, how far into the future your payments can be, and work toward making that many extra payments. So let's say that your due date can be pushed ahead by 3 months. Over the course of the next year, maybe you can make an extra 3 payments. By doing so, if hard times come, you are 3 months ahead on your house payment. That's 3 months where you could slack off of paying your house payment and you're not even going to get behind. Benefit number 2 is that by making an extra payment onto your home, you're actually paying for more than 1 month. If you have a 30-year mortgage and you double up your payments, most people would think, well, that will have me paying off my home in 15 years. You know, if you have a 30-year mortgage and you pay twice as much as you're supposed to every month, then, 15 years. But reality, it knocks your mortgage payment down to about 11 years. And depending on your interest rate, I'm calculating between like a 2.5% and 4% interest rate. The higher your interest rate, the sooner it'll pay off. So in some cases, folks who have a 4.5% interest rate, 5% interest rate, by making double payments, your home is going to pay off somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years, maybe even a little sooner, 9 years and some change. A good website to visit is bankrate.com. They have a lot of scenarios like that. Give them a look-see. I think you'll like it. Benefit number 3 is that your net worth will begin to grow at a rate much faster than if you were just saving the money. Because your net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. And so the debt you have on your home is a liability. And so let's say you have $800 cash and you put that toward your mortgage payment. Debt goes down by $800, but also net worth goes up by $800. So you're making, not including interest, $1,600 difference in your net worth every time you make a mortgage payment. Side note, there was a really cool study done by the Dave Ramsey team. I think it's in the book Everyday Millionaires by Chris Hogan. They studied over 10,000 millionaires in America, and they found that over 80% of those millionaires, of 10,000 of them, over 80% of them got there first by having a paid off home and by maxing out contributions to their 401k and to tax advantage accounts like the IRA and the Roth IRA. And many of the folks I deal with on a day-to-day basis don't have anything invested, but they do have a mortgage payment. And it's easier for me to persuade the majority of the people in my life to make an extra mortgage payment than it is to persuade them to invest, because the mentality of the people around here is the stock market is crazy and you don't know what it's going to do. But by making extra mortgage payments, it leads me to number 4, a more predictable outcome. You know what your interest rate is, and probably that interest rate is locked in for 15 or 30 years. And so you know what your rate of return is. For some folks, that's 4 to 6% a year. So what if instead of making double payments on your home, you invested it into the S&P 500? In most cases, that will work out better for your net worth in the end, but it's not always the case. If you had, let's look at the year 2000. I'll put some numbers here somewhere. The first trading day of the year 2000, SPY, or the S&P 500, was $96.74. The first trading day of December 2010, which is roughly 11 years later, 10 years, 11 months later, SPY was $97.69. It went from $96.74 to $97.69. Now, this isn't a loss, especially if you're dollar cost averaging, but the stock market doesn't always go up. Benefit number 5 is that by putting your extra cash onto your mortgage, you are hedging that cash against inflation. Inflation is tricky. Not a lot of people really wrap their heads around inflation. They actually see things as getting more expensive rather than as the dollar itself losing value. But that's why, these old people will say, when I was your age, a Coke costed a nickel, and now a Coke costs $1. Well, it's not that the Coke has changed. A Coke is a Coke 50 years ago as it is today. But because that dollar or nickel in that case is eroding away in value, it takes more and more of them to pay for the same thing. And so the more money you can get out of cash and get it into the equity of your home, as the dollar continues to erode, the value of your home will increase in value because it takes more and more dollars to buy the thing. Of course, you can use this argument the other way to say $250,000 today is more than $250,000 30 years from now. So why would I pay extra today when it's going to be worth less in the future? And there is merit to that argument. But I've never met anyone when I ask them, hey, what did you make in the stock market last year? They don't say, well, actually I made $40,000 in cash, but once I include inflation, that $40,000 really is only $38,500 compared to what it was at the beginning of the year. No, people just look at the year in which they are in, and day-to-day life don't factor in inflation too much. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but most people don't, at least not the people I've met. Benefit number 6, and potentially this is the biggest and best one, it is peace of mind. Dave Ramsey often gets a bad rap for not knowing what he's talking about, but the dude has been crunching these numbers since like the 70s. He knows what's up, but he optimizes for peace rather than for returns. Like his flagship course is called Financial Peace University, not Financial Milk Everything You Can from the Market University. By optimizing for peace, his emphasis is on paying off your debt because that causes peace, and then starting to build your wealth slowly by investing what you can, 15% or so, into the stock market. Dave has a quote. Let me see if I can find it actually. Why work to pay off your home early? Because once your home is paid off, your foreclosure risk is 0, and that lends to financial peace. Benefit number 7 is that it is easier to find financial independence if your expenses are as low as possible. At least that's the case in my experience. If your money is sitting in an index fund, you'd have to have a significant amount to cover your mortgage if you're trying to fire by something like the 4% rule. Pay off your home, keep those expenses low, and then it doesn't take as much money from your investments to be able to fund your lifestyle, to live a free life, to do the work you want to do, if you're not already. If you've made it this far, I encourage you, please give a little love tap to that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you like this video and perhaps like me, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, because then you'll be notified every time I drop a video. I know that it hasn't been very often, but it will be very often, will be more often than it has ever been starting now, because I've committed to do so. Benefit number 8 is that it is easier to take risks. There's a book I love called Set for Life by Scott Trench. He's one of those guys from over there at Bigger Pockets. If you haven't checked out the Bigger Pockets podcast, I encourage you to check out the Bigger Pockets podcast and the Bigger Pockets Money podcast. Those are both fantastic. But he postulates that the best way to become financially independent is to focus on the biggest ticket items you have. And for most folks, that's your home, your car or cars, and your insurances. But once you tackle those big three, find out a way to minimize those expenses, then maybe you can save enough money to have a financial runway. Let's say you can save a year's worth of expenses or save 2 years worth of expenses. That'll give you enough freedom or enough peace to be able to step away from your job and focus on a side hustle that you've been wanting to do, focus on building a business without worrying about having to lose the house, without worrying about your family being in financial trouble. And then from there, the worst case scenario is you won't lose your house. The worst case scenario is you just go back to doing what you're already doing now. In conclusion, you choose the game you want to play. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There are better ways and worse ways, but ultimately it has to be optimized for what your plans are. It can be optimized for what somebody else's plans are. What are your plans? What would make you feel better in your heart? And if in your heart you feel like you would feel better by being out of your mortgage payment, then pay it off. You can't go wrong by doing that. And once again, to quote my man Marco from Whiteboard Finance, if you are in a position to concern yourself with which thing is more prudent, then you're in a pretty good place. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.